Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. Today I want to return to my year-long Luis Bunuel series of discussions of nearly all of his filmography. Today's film that I'm going to discuss is Belle De Jour. This comes from 1967. It is in the Criterion Collection. You can also stream it on the Criterion channel with all the supplements, including a really good commentary by Michael Wood. So this movie is adopted from a 1928 novel by Joseph Kessel. It was kind of a salacious novel. It's a story of a wealthy bourgeois woman. She's married to a very successful surgeon. They live in a beautiful apartment. She's part of the smart set. She dresses well. They go skiing in the winter. She plays tennis every day. But her life is somewhat empty, especially her sexual life. This is Catherine Deneuve playing Severine, and her sex life is unfulfilling to her. Her husband, Pierre, who's the very successful surgeon, he treats her with great tenderness. He treats her as if she is a prized possession, and she is somewhat frigid. So their sex life is not good, and the reason it's not good is that Severine dreams of being dominated sexually, and so she hears that one of her friends has worked as a prostitute in order to make money. And she's very intrigued by that, and she kind of desires to discover what that would be like. Now we see that she is very masochistic, and this is suggested that it has evolved from a childhood molestation experience. So she goes to this sort of middle-class type bordel, or rather ordinary apartment, 3 bedrooms. There's 2 other women who work there as prostitutes. She tries to avoid it, or she wants to run away at first, but then her curiosity gets the best of her, and she is up for everything. And the rougher the better. The more dominated she is, the better. Which, of course, so now she is living 2 separate lives. She's Belle De Jour, so she works 2 to 5. She gets home for her husband. She loves her husband. She loves him terrifically, but he's not satisfying his needs. He loves her. But and Bunuel is exploring the sexual perversity of the bourgeoisie, which is, a long-term motif in all of his films. And of course, he's a surrealist. So although he follows Joseph Kessel's novel pretty much, very, very, he follows it very close up until the end. The end. Kessel's novel becomes kind of complicated in the ending. Bunuel simplifies it, but both films basically come to the same conclusion as far as the plot goes. But what Bunuel does is, while following the plot, he adds all these scenes of fantasies. We see Severine's fantasies from the opening sequence, where there is a carriage riding through a wooded area. Two men are driving the carriage. Pierre and Severine are in the carriage, and then all of a sudden the carriage stops, and we see Pierre having his servants degrading Severine in quite shocking manner. So so the film opens, and you wonder what's real. This can't possibly be real, because then we go directly back into Severine's bedroom where she's talking with Pierre. So Bunuel continues to do this fantasy these Severine fantasies throughout the movie, up until the very end. So even by the end, we wonder what is reality and what is fantasy. Uh, this is thought by many to be one of Bunuel's most surrealistic movies. The fantasy of real life versus the reality of the fantasies, because the fantasies seem to mean more to Severine than her own marriage. Now, she meets one of the clients, turns out to be this gangster Marcel, and he's a bad guy, but that's what she's looking for. And he falls obsessively in love with her, and we now see the makings of where this movie is likely to go to its very strange, strange conclusion. So, as I said, Severine is up for just about anything, and they have a client. He's an Asian man, burly, and he comes in with a box. This is one of the most famous sequences from Belle De Jour, and he shows one of the other, one of Severine's colleagues. He shows her what's inside the box, and she looks horrified and shakes her head. He shows Severine what's in the box, and it doesn't faze her at all. But we never see what's in the box. So Bunuel is often questioned in interviews. One of the first questions he says I always get, "What was in that box?" So the movie has a dimension to it in Catherine Deneuve, because Catherine Deneuve she was very, very beautiful, still with us, still very beautiful, still active in movies. I think she's in her 80s now. And she has a model's look. She looks like a model. She had been in many films. She was in the two Jacques Demy musicals. She had been in Roman Polanski's Repulsion just a couple of years before Belle De Jour. And when we see her, she almost has like a frozen look to her, to sort of symbolize her sexual frigidity as far as with her husband, not frigid with with her clients, and her inexperience as an actress, I think, really plays into this, because she's awkward. In her evolution as a prostitute, it doesn't come easily. She has a client. She gets a client who is a masochist himself, and it just doesn't work out. I mean, she wants to be the masochist. Of course, she's doing this for her own sexual fulfillment, as perverse as it might seem. She's not interested in the money, and there's a terrific supporting cast here. Pierre, her husband, played by Gene Sorel. He's just a good-looking guy, impossibly good-looking, as Catherine Deneuve is. Michel Piccoli is here. He is sort of the devilish character who tells Severine about a house of prostitution where their mutual friend had worked, and gives her the idea. He's after Severine. There's a good scene and later on in the movie where he shows up at this house of prostitution. And then Francois Rebel, who was Nazarene and also Viridiana's cousin, he's the gangster that brings Marcel into the bordello. Marcel is played by Pierre Clemente, and this is a really odd performance. and if people dislike this film, or some of the things they might dislike this film for, is Clemente's performance, and also the way Bunuel directs him. It's almost farcical. We get two sort of references to Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless, where the Francisco Rebels as he comes into the bordello, he picks up a Herald Tribune, as Gene Seberg showed, sold Herald Tribunes very famously on Paris streets in Breathless. And there's a death scene coming up that will remind you of Jean-Paul Belmondo's death scene also in Breathless. Francois Fabian plays one of the other prostitutes at the bordello. Just a couple of years later, she would become famous as Maud in My Night at Maud's. And the madam of the bordello is played by Genevieve Page, and she has her own designs on Severine. She understands very quickly that Severine needs a strong hand. She needs to be told what to do early on when Severine is reluctant to proceed. But she also sort of has romantic interest in Severine. Genevieve Page would play Sherlock Holmes's love interest in Billy Wilder's The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, also a couple of years later. The reception was really good. It didn't win Palme d'Or. It won the second, it's a secondary award at the Cannes Film Festival, but it got great reviews around the world. There was a division in the Paris critical world. It was thought that Bunuel was selling out, that he was working with the Hakim brothers. He was producer during this era with Serge Silverman, who went bankrupt. So he's working with the Hakim brothers, who made very risque movies, and working with a big star like Catherine Deneuve. The film looks beautiful. It's photographed by Sacha Baron, who did many of Alan Rene's films, but it has the Bunuel look, which was sort of flat. It was sort of focused on characters. We don't get beautiful imagery, striking imagery, which Sacha Baron was very good at doing. And some people might be put off by that and by Pierre Clementi's performance. Now, memoir alert, I had one film course in college, the only one that was available to me in my college career. And for our midterm assignment in this film course, we had to pick a movie and talk about it. Belle De Jour was on the list. I had already seen it a couple times, and I went to see it again. I got a very good grade on it. It was a really interesting story, a very, very interesting experience. The first time I ever wrote at length. I used to write little short reviews for my college newspaper, but it was the first time I ever wrote an extended essay on a film. It was a good one to choose because this is a very mysterious film, and Bunuel's surrealism. It's open to many different interpretations, especially the way Bunuel ended the ending that Bunuel chose to make, with the blending of the real and the imaginary. And in Bunuel's view, the imaginary, our imaginary life, our daydreams, are just as important as our reality. So next up, I think in my Bunuel series, I think I'll be talking about his very strange adaptation of Wuthering Heights, which is streaming on YouTube. Okay, thanks a lot for listening. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.